Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me today is Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat writer. It is Charlie O'Connor. What's going on today, Chuck?
Fresh off my trip to Voorhees, and now I'm back, and now we're going to break down another Danny Briere press conference.
Yet another day of Kolosov talk.
Before we get into it,
Oh, yeah,
I
we're
really want to point out that picture that launches the show. It is exceptional.
It's perfect.
We got for those listening on the podcast, it is basically Danny in a suit, and then Kolosov just like staring daggers at him.
It's really perfect.
It is so good.
Brenna comes through.
Exceptional work, Brenna.
Brenna comes through for us yet again on the thumbnail. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. Obviously, Danny Briere's comments are going to be his press conference today. Going to be the majority of the show.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I do want to go back to yesterday, just rookie camp stuff, see if there's anything we didn't really get to, didn't touch on from the rookie series games.
This was the last
camp.
day of rookie camp.
Today was the close of rookie camp.
I did not watch much of on-ice things because I was focused mostly on Danny and transcribing and working out what I want to write about that, which I'm writing right now. Well, not right now, but in the minutes leading up to show, I was typing away.
3 minutes ago, yeah.
I sure was. But rookie camp did go on today. Today it ended, so around, I guess, 1-ish, we talked to Ian LaPerriere to close it out. So rookie camp is over. Tomorrow is technically the first day of training camp, but it is very much off ice. Everybody shows up. Everybody's there, but everybody shows up. The big thing that happens tomorrow, and the reason why I will not be going to the facility for the first time in about a week, is it's the day when NBC Sports Philadelphia takes all the videos that they use on broadcast. You know, the ones where they're skating around the ice.
Taping their stick and looking at the camera weird and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I can't imagine there's a lot to do for you tomorrow.
Right. So I will be home.
That'll be nice for you.
Not
Not
a
to have
little semi-day off aside from doing the show.
Yeah, well, it is. This is the easiest part of my day. Just talking about the Flyers with Charlie. It's great. But rookie camp stuff. Samu Tuomaala out again today.
Yes, third straight day.
Do we know anything? Like, is he going to be on the ice on Thursday? Is this all a big ruse to get out of skating on Thursday? Like, you know what? I don't feel like, oh, man, my back's tight. I don't know. I bet you Friday I'll be good to go.
Yeah, I'll be great Friday. Yeah.
Do we know anything about Samu?
My hamstring is just so tight.
Yeah, AJ Brown, man. I don't know. I just kind of tweaked something. Could use a few days off. Do we know anything about Samu other than he's out?
All I know is that Ian LaPerriere, notably yesterday when we talked to him about Samu Tuomaala, he notably said if he's ready for the first day of main camp. That did not sound great.
No.
Now, I don't think this is super serious. I don't think this is something where we're going to find out in a week that he's out for 6 months. But the initial day-to-day designation they gave him, it seemed a little optimistic.
While we do not expect to find out tomorrow, oh yeah, Samu Tuomaala out for 6 months. This is the Flyers.
It is the Flyers. You can never rule anything out.
This was on the mailbag show, I guess, last Thursday. It was like there was a question: do we have confidence in the training staff, the doctors, and that? Like, I know they've made some changes and everything, and it's listen. I will have, I mean, I guess I'll just never really have confidence. And a lot of times I think decisions need to be taken more out of players' hands, but this is hockey.
Right.
But it's very much, it's like Ristolainen. Yeah, I think he's healthy. Sure. This is a believe it when I see it sort of thing. When guys stop just disappearing after, a day-to-day designation and then they're gone for months at a time, I will then have confidence. But until then, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, Samu could very well be on the ice on Thursday. But
he could.
LaPerriere dropped that if, so we'll see. We started talking about Bonk a little bit yesterday, but kind of went in a different direction. Yeah. What did we think of Oliver Bonk in the games? What have you seen out of him in camp? There was a Briere quote today: Bonk could have a look, which a lot of people have been like, why not give him the 9 games? And sounds like he's open to maybe carrying 8 defensemen. In my mind, that means, Erik Johnson is 7,
right?
Or he's 8, and like Ronnie Attard, who yeah, why not carry him?
He's no longer waiver exempt.
No longer waiver
so
exempt.
if he has a good camp, they're incentivized to keep him rather than risk losing him if he has a good camp.
Yeah.
Talking about Bonk, though.
Yeah.
He only played in the one rookie game. He played Friday, not Saturday.
Yeah.
So we didn't get 2 games to look at him, just the one. I thought he was fine. I didn't think he was incredible. He didn't pop the same way that Luchenko did, for example.
Yeah.
Michkov popped because he's Michkov.
He's Matvei Michkov.
But
He's very good.
Luchenko popped. Luchenko, you noticed him every time he was on the ice. Bonk was fine. I don't remember any notably bad plays.
Yeah.
But I don't think he, exerted his authority on the game the same way that Luchenko did. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
No, that was yesterday we touched on Spencer Gill, who I might want to talk a little bit more about today. And it was like, I get why the Flyers are like, oh, he's promising. It might be a little bit. He's clearly not a finished product, but there's something there where he might be more than just like what we think Igor Zamula is ultimately going to be.
Right.
Like, I'd be fine 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's an NHL player.
Yeah.
Sure. Like, Spencer Gill might be a top 4 defenseman, and I saw why.
Right.
And it was like, it wasn't great. It wasn't perfect. It was just like, there's something here.
There's a reason why I ranked Spencer Gill in my top 10. He didn't make the list in the top 10, but he made my top 10. I'm quite high on
and
him.
like Hunter McDonald was comical to me. Like he was fine. Wasn't great defensively, like we said, but I was just really entertained that anytime anyone touched a Flyers line mate when he was on the ice, they then had some physical retribution taken out on them.
Yes.
That was noticeable. I didn't like. Yeah, I was sitting behind him for 2 periods, so I saw the back of his jersey and saw it was Bonk, but that was the only time he stood out, I would say.
Yeah, I thought it was an unspectacular game. Not a bad game, just unspectacular. What I will say about Bonk, this is what I've heard. I've heard that I don't think he's going to make this team. I think he would have to have a great camp to make this team. However, I've heard that if there's fans obviously want the shiny new toy.
Yeah.
Another guy who I get the sense likes the shiny new toy in this case is John Tortorella. Torts, I've heard, is more open than most in the organization to the idea of having Bonk stick around for a few games. He really likes it.
Hell, he's got to be sitting there and I know, or what, are we going to play him in the bumper? Yeah, why the hell not? He's got to be sitting there look at my power play.
Yeah.
I want my friend Rocky to remain employed. What is Oliver Bonk going to make our power play worse? He can't possibly.
Yeah.
It cannot be worse than 12%.
No, don't challenge him.
I'm just saying, mathematically, 12% is... You score more than that at 5-on-5, in the amount of time. So you would think he would make it better. But also, and look at this defense. Yes, there's makings of a good defense here, maybe, but also are any of these guys spectacular? No, Oliver Bonk might be really good. Who knows? I can see why he thinks that. I would tend to believe though, this dude who we didn't have pegged to make the team starts with a standout rookie game.
Right.
And that's why we're like, maybe Chet Luchenko.
What about Chet?
Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. But Oliver Bonk, no. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
He could kill it at camp,
you
and
never
then there
know.
you go.
Yeah.
But I don't think he has that momentum building already.
I would agree. What I will say, though, against that is they really like him.
Okay.
And there are things about his game, they really like the subtleties of Oliver Bonk's game, so they may be more impressed watching him than we were, because we were more looking for the flashy, did he make plays with the puck?
Yeah.
Did he, engineer breakouts very well? Was he the center of the action? What they like about Bonk more is the subtleties of his game. They like all the little things he does, and maybe they noticed a lot of the little things that they think he did well, possibly. I'm just saying that, I equate their view, based on the people I've talked to in the organization, I equate their view of Oliver Bonk to be similar to what their view a couple years ago was of Tyson Forrester. And we had this conversation on this show a couple times, and on BSH, that I always said the Flyers are much higher on Tyson Forrester than I am. I see an NHL player. I talk to people in the organization, when I say, you guys don't have any high-end players, and they'll be like, well, we got Tyson Forrester. And I'm just like, high-end? Really? Well, last year, he looked like he could be. So maybe they're right on Bonk, too.
And they have acknowledged, Bonk's scoring numbers, cool. But that's not why we drafted him. It's other stuff. And if it translates, then we have like a first pair defenseman.
Yeah.
But it's other stuff that we like about him. And Tyson Forster, it looks like they were right.
Exactly.
Like, you drafted him at 20.
Yeah.
Was it 20, 21, somewhere in there?
Yeah,
in the
that
20s.
range.
I think it was 20.
Early 20s.
Yeah, whatever it was. And it's like, all right, we think, though, he's a top half of the first round guy. We think he might be a top 10 guy, and we got lucky. I don't know, 20 goals as a rookie. The advanced metrics were freaking amazing.
Yeah.
You know, like when he's like, oh, he's like the best defensive forward in hockey. You know, like,
one of them.
Yeah, and like he was like top 5 on some lists. Like he was really freaking good. So maybe they are good at unearthing these guys later than and seeing the subtleties in their game. Maybe that's Oliver Bonk.
We shall see. I would agree with you. Though I do not think he's going to make this team out of camp, nor get the 9-game audition. But given how much they love him, that's the main reason why I can't rule it out completely.
And we'll see about Risto. Allegedly healthy, but I'll, again, believe it when I see it.
Well, we'll find out on Thursday.
That's a right shot defenseman right there. Yeah. Anyone else from rookie camp before we move on to some Danny stuff that you wanted to touch on?
Not really. You know, I would say, I mean, Michkov popped every day.
Yeah, we're going to talk Michkov next.
Yes. So let's do that.
It's mandated. We have to talk Matvei.
Let's talk some Matvei.
Mandatory Matvei.
Mandatory Matvei.
The Danny quotes on Michkov today, I just want to know. They're clearly trying to temper expectations because they don't want him to go goalless to, in the first 4 games of the season. It's like, I stayed up till 10 o'clock and he didn't score. He's a bust. Like, they don't want people screaming that. Do you believe Danny Briere when he says my expectations are actually pretty low?
No.
Like,
no, not even a little
you
bit.
You don't go to the airport and carry the dude's equipment if you're like, yeah, he's going to be all right, but it's going to be a tough first year. I realize, do they expect him to win the Hart Trophy? No. But they can't possibly think this. They ran up to the podium to draft him at 7. Yeah. They were trying to trade up to get him at 5. They think this dude is a freaking superstar.
Yeah.
Is he a superstar? Meaning, we've had this conversation. I don't want to continue having this hypothetical conversation that we both agree on. But, they think he's really freaking good, and he's probably going to be in Calder consideration, right?
Yeah, I think so. Danny is obviously trying to... Look, it's always better to have, in terms of managing expectations, have them lower so then you exceed them and then everybody's happy, rather than have them sky high, and then if he doesn't quite meet them but is still really good, you have crazy people on Twitter saying he's a bust. They want to have this so... They want to do their best to position it so he exceeds expectations rather than fails to meet them. And by trying to set the expectations as low as they possibly can, they're trying to kind of put their finger on the scale a little bit. They are very excited about Matvei Michkov. They think he's going to do quite well as a rookie. They do know that it's hard moving to a new country. Yeah. It's hard learning a new language. All the stuff he's doing, it's difficult. But I don't think they're that worried about the hockey. I think they know, at the very least, it's going to be pretty good.
And that was his competitiveness, his willingness to get better, all of that, I think is going to ingratiate him to the coach, as we've said. But Michkov, or third attempt, Briere said today, there's going to be some fireworks like there are with basically every player John has ever coached.
They know how it goes.
They know how it's going to go.
We're all just passengers on the John Tortorella experience.
But he said towards his goal is to make Matvei the best player he possibly can be.
Right.
And I think we sometimes gloss over that with Torts. He's emotional and sometimes he gets caught up in the moment and then he has to come back like he did with Sandstrom and be like, listen, my bad. That wasn't what I was trying to do. Yeah. But overall, there is a method to the madness. Like we said with Morgan Frost last year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he might just not like the way he plays. He might just not be the biggest Morgan Frost fan, but he is pushing buttons in order to get what he wants out of Morgan Frost. And when he confronted him, he finally got what he wanted out of Morgan Frost. Right. Show me that fire. Show me you want it this bad. He pushes buttons, and that is his coaching style. It is purposeful. Mm-hmm. And Danny is acknowledging that. Yeah, he's going to push his buttons because that's what he does. And Matvei is really competitive, and they might get in screaming matches on the bench, which I am very much looking forward to seeing. Two dudes yelling at each other in different languages. Really hope we have mics close enough to catch these arguments. But they seem prepared for, something's going to happen. But it's all part of the development plan for Matvei Michkov.
It's part of the development plan, to be sure, because that's why they're excited about him playing under Torts. Some people are concerned about it. Part of me is a little concerned about it. I'm not going to lie. But their thing is, this is why John Tortorella is the head coach. Yeah. Maybe if he had to wait 3 years to come over, maybe Torts will have already retired. He wasn't going to get this opportunity. But the whole reason why John Tortorella is still the head coach, why he survived what essentially was a complete organizational turnover, is because they believe that John Tortorella is a good developer of young players. He's a good developer of young talent. Not everyone agrees with that. But the Flyers very much believe that John Tortorella develops players well. And they are excited to see him develop Matvei Michkov well. Now, is that ultimately how it's going to play out? I don't know. But they believe that is how it's going to play out.
Who's to say?
Yeah,
but I honestly, while there might be some exceptions, like track record pretty deep. It's like, oh, well, look at, the line ace, the PLD. It's like, and look at how these guys' careers went.
Yeah.
Did he maybe treat them fairly unfair? I don't know. They don't seem to be like the best players. They don't seem to have,
it's a fair point.
Look at what they did afterwards.
Yeah.
They're on their last opportunities. I think he's good at bringing out the best and exposing the character of a guy. And maybe we don't want to see some the broken eggs to make the omelet. It's like, oh, well, he did in this situation. It's like, yeah, but it works 90% of the time.
Right.
And then look at the broken eggs. Ultimately, maybe we just found out sooner than we wanted to that guy wasn't going to do it. And that's what he's here for. And I actually agree with the Flyers. Like I've said, I don't think I want him as the coach when they are pursuing the Stanley Cup. But for right now, to make that list of has it, doesn't have it, I think he's got an ability to figure that out.
He is the designated arbiter of who's got that dog in them.
Exactly.
And I really do think Matvei Michkov has that dog in him.
He 100%. From all reports, it will be a shock if it's like, yeah, man, he just got here and didn't care that much.
Yeah.
That
would be a big surprise.
Going to work his ass off by all accounts. We have some more stuff coming up from Danny Briere's press conference and all the quotes and everything, Kolosov situation. But first, this is a great one.
Okay.
Because we're talking about chilling. That's right.
Yes.
We are chilling with Coors Light. Listen, between work, social media, life, the birds. It's no wonder we're just more worked up than ever. Coors Light celebrates rising above and choosing a chill mindset. Why not turn a rained-out barbecue into a karaoke house party? Or after a tough loss, settle scores with an ice-cold peace offering. Make the choice to choose chill, then reach for an ice-cold Coors Light because it's mountain cold refreshment. Listen, Charlie, we've been doing this a long time. We're not getting any less fired up about this team, and that's why sometimes we all just need to choose to chill. And when we make that decision, there's no better way to celebrate than with an ice-cold Coors Light. So whether you're freaking out about a goaltender not showing up, the coach's relationship with the potential superstar, if the GM's ever going to make a trade, you need to find the Blue Mountains in your fridge and enjoy a beer as cold as the Rockies, because when everything surrounding your favorite hockey team is on fire, sometimes you just gotta chill. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. While we're here, all right, you've chosen to chill. And now, I got nothing for this transition.
Okay.
Listen, I've been telling you for months now, you got to make the switch from your big bank to TrueMark Financial Credit Union. They make it super easy because they know. It's like, I have this tied to my bank account. I got to do all these different things. They know it sounds like a pain. And that's why if you just go to TrueMark.com/PHLY.com, TrueMark.com/PHLY right now, you'll see how easy it is to make the switch. Why should you do it? You know about the ownership structure of the big bank. It's a for-profit institution owned by a bunch of shareholders with the primary goal of generating profits for those shareholders. While as credit unions like TrueMark Financial are not-for-profit financial co-ops owned by their members. So if you live or work in Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, or Philadelphia counties, you're eligible to join, and member benefits include great rates, lower fees, and personalized service. And that's what it's all about, is the personalized service, being members of the community. And you just go into one of the dozens of branches, of TrueMark Financial branches, and you'll find advisors there who can provide personalized financial planning and expertise, so you can learn about goal setting for long-term financial security. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit TrueMark.com/PHLY. All right.
Is it Kolosov time?
Yeah. So the Flyers training camp schedule and rosters put out today. 6 goalies listed. 4 signed to contracts, 1 on an ATO, 1 on a PTO. A goaltender signed to a contract not listed, Alexei Kolosov. He ain't coming. I ain't going to be there.
He's definitely not coming.
Yeah. So we have Bjarnason, Ersson, Fedotov, Peterson all signed and on the roster. Sam Hillebrand is on an ATO.
He was rookie camp. He was the other goalie.
He played the second and third on Saturday in the rookie game. And Eetu Makiniemi is on a professional tryout. Maybe Briere is just doing a good job of positioning, like, oh, yeah, man, he wants an NHL job, and he hasn't earned it, so he ain't coming. Is that what it just sounds like? He wants a spot in the NHL. There seem to be leaning away from, oh, he didn't like Allentown. He didn't have any friends on the team. And it's like, yeah, he wants to play in the NHL, and we don't think he's ready for that yet, so too bad.
Well, so yes and no. So it was very noteworthy, I thought, that this is the first time that Briere and the Flyers, and they have been in contact with Kolosov and his camp over the last few weeks, to be sure. This is the first time they gave something remotely resembling an actual reason beyond just, well, we don't know. Danny Briere straight up said today, I'm guessing this is coming straight from the Kolosov camp, is he wants to be in the NHL. We don't think he's ready. We want him to go to the AHL. So from one stance, yes, that is true. However, I do think the Allentown stuff is still part of this story, because I think it was Kevin Kurz asked Briere today, if you could go back and change anything about the situation, would you? Basically, what do you think maybe you guys did wrong in this? And Briere said, if we could have had a Russian player there for him during those 6 weeks, maybe that would have helped. He basically said, look, it's not easy. I've made this point on the show. The thing with Russians is that they, generally speaking, would rather play in Russia, like that, rather than be a career AHL. Yeah, it's like, well, if they get sent down or whatever, they'll do it, but they're not going to sign an AHL contract rather than go play in the KHL back at home. So it's hard to find Russian speakers to be on your AHL team to just be Kolosov's buddy. But Briere's like, look, maybe we could have done that. So I think that was probably part of it. It might be both. It might be, hey, if he had showed up and was happy in Allentown, maybe he'd go. And he'd be like, yeah, I'll stay down there for a year. But maybe he showed up, wasn't happy, and now he's like, well, I don't like it there. I'd come over if I'm going to be in the NHL, but if I'm not going to be, I don't want to come over because I didn't like it there.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably a little bit of both.
What I always try to see it from his perspective. But what bothers me about this is, like, yeah, he is kind of blocked this year. He had as good of a chance as at least Fedotov, if not both guys, to be in the NHL in 2025-26 if he had a great showing in Allentown, or if Fedotov just wasn't that good. I know that they gave Fedotov this contract. It's like, wow, it's a 2-year deal, and look at the money he's making. He's making considerably more than Ersson, who the coach or the GM just said Ersson's the number one. Yeah. We hope that Fedotov basically does what Ersson did in those November, December, when it was, oh man, maybe we should split the starts
50-50,
here. Hopefully he pushes, but going into the year, Ersson is the number one.
Yes.
That said, with Fedotov, they gave him the contract. He's not waiver exempt. but it's basically waiver protection if he sucks. And I think they're going to ride him this year, and I think they would have just to find out.
Yeah. But you're right. If he
sucks,
stinks, nobody's claiming that contract.
You put him on waivers, and it's like, well, why would we want to pay over $3 million for a goalie who's 29 and stinks?
Yeah.
Or at least needs AHL time to figure it out.
Right.
Like, a year from now, Kolosov would have been in a better situation than when he signed his ELC, because there was at least one goalie spot taken. Like Carter Hart, when he signed that ELC, was the number one goalie and was going to remain the number one goalie, barring what happened. There could be 2 goalie spots in the NHL opened a year from today. Yeah. And if you're unwilling to stick it out in the AHL for a year, I actually kind of side with the Flyers on this one.
Do you really?
The Cutter situation, we'll get to like the comparison here in a bit, but like the Cutter situation, I believe, maybe he's an a-hole and it was never going to work, but they probably could have figured something out to handle it better, and we could still have Cutter Gauthier in this organization. It's probably 50-50. I feel like this is on Kolosov, man. Like, do your job. Show up to work and earn it, you know? Yeah, are you blocked a little right now? Sure. Also, the Flyers haven't used less than 3 goalies ever. As any team, like,
and Briere said that
you were gonna play at some point. Yeah. We have no idea what Fedotov is. Sam Ersson, what happened last year? We overworked him. They carried 3 goalies through like Christmas last year.
That's true.
You were gonna get a shot, and if not this year, they can't bring up Cal Peterson after what they did. Like, he is just riding out the contract, man. You can't bring him back into this locker room after the way they threw him under the bus last year. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, he stinks. He's cut again. With this coach, no, it was him. He's the 3rd goalie in the depth chart. You were going to get a shot. You weren't willing to ride it out. I realize, it's not the best situation, but like, making the NHL shouldn't be easy. You're not. If he was like Fedotov, we talked about his resume. I know it's just really bit like he was one of the better goalies in the league. Won a medal. What was it? A silver medal. Won their Stanley Cup. Right. The Gargarin. I don't know how to say
the Gargano Cup.
Yeah, the Gargano Cup. Whatever the hell the thing's like. He had a resume that it's like, you're gonna come over, and also you're old. You need to play. Like, what do we get out of playing you in the AHL at this point? We got to figure out if you're an NHL goalie or not. Boom. Kolosov, you're 22, man. Like, goalies don't play in the NHL at 22. It's not a thing. I don't understand what his gripe is other than, not for me in the AHL. And if that's the case, what are the Flyers supposed to do about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you're coming down on the side of the Flyers. I am more of the opinion that the Flyers cannot keep doing this. They can't keep having these problems with prospects. They're going to rebuild. This is a rebuilding team. They have told us we are rebuilding. We are stockpiling assets. We are adding draft picks. We're going to be bringing more prospects into the organization. And now in 1 calendar year, 2 of their top 10 prospects have basically been like, yeah, we totally disagree with what you're doing. We don't want to be part of this. I don't know if there is a hard, fast connection, but I do think there is a connection in that the Flyers need to stop this from happening, and that it's on them to figure it out. Because in the end, this is a results-based business, okay? It's a results-based business, and the result is 2 of their top prospects in a rebuild both are like, now we're good. This seems like something that is fixable. Like, compare this to Michkov, and you've made this comparison as well. They showed up to the airport. They carried his bags. They have 2 Russians on the team. Like, I don't know if Igor Zamula is still a Philadelphia Flyer if Michkov is here. I don't know. But Michkov is here, and Zamula is staying here. Fedotov, I think, honestly, part of that thing was to have another guy for Michkov. Once they started to get a read that, hey, maybe Michkov can get out of this contract early. All right, get Fedotov over here. I think that's part of it. The Flyers, it's not that they couldn't have laid out the red carpet for Kolosov. It's not that they couldn't have found a friend or whatever, on the team, somebody who knows Russian, maybe not a Russian, but at least he speaks Russian. Somebody who's, has the language ability to speak the language. they could have done a better job. I don't think it's that the Flyers screwed up exactly, but it's that this is an organization that has the resources to do more.
Sure.
And in the Kolosov situation, they didn't do enough more, if that makes sense.
I guess my issue with it is that there was never any indication prior to them not doing enough that they weren't doing enough. It's very much just like getting broken up with and then getting this is what you could be doing. Like there was never, he signed his contract. He came over and then he was unhappy. After they agreed to the loan in year one, it was like, okay, yeah, stay over there. We might not have a place for you. Like, it just seems as if he never wanted to come over. That's really
maybe
like,
but here's the thing. Why? And again, this is why I find it very interesting that you are taking the Flyer side on this. Why does this not seem to happen to other organizations? It's happened to the Flyers twice in a year,
and which
is why I'm saying the Flyers this is not Carolina. This is not the Coyotes before they move. This is not an organization that has to penny pinch. They have lots of money. They can spend lots of money on non-salary cap things to make sure their prospects are happy. Why didn't they do more?
I guess they just didn't know they had to. Like, it just seemed
but they shouldn't have to know. Like, they should be doing that already. If you have the resources, why not do it, just in case?
I get, like, other than have a Russian speaker around for him, like, what did they need to do? They brought the kid over. Like, I don't think he had to buy himself a plane ticket to get here. I bet you they flew him out. Like, they had the press conference. They introduced him and Fedotov. Like, it all happened. And then he was unhappy.
I guess what I'm saying is we saw in the Michkov situation that when they want to, they can, roll out the red carpet, do everything for a guy. Is it true that Michkov is a lot better of a prospect and a lot more important than Alexei Kolosov? Yes, it is. It is obviously objectively true. But if you could do it for him, why not just do it for everybody? Because then you can avoid these kinds of situations.
I just don't think that's what it was. Like, to me, and yeah, like, combining this with Cutter, and the difference is Cutter never signed a contract.
Right.
Like, Kolosov is under contract and legally can't play anywhere else. He's supposed to be showing up for work and just kind of isn't. That, to me, is on him. Mm-hmm. But it is an issue that this has happened twice.
Yes.
I will say, and this is one thing, again, I kind of side with Briere on. These are two guys who had little to no exposure to the organization and just from the outside, like, we're good. And we just keep seeing players choose to stay. Like, Travis Sanheim, after they told him, like, yeah, we're trading you. You're gone. His no move or his no trade kicked in. And he's like, I'd exercise that if you tried to trade me again. I'm not going anywhere, even though the coach doesn't like me and sat me in my own hometown. Even though the team fucking...
Sure did do that.
Damn, I did it. Sorry. Even though the team freaking stinks, like, I'm staying. Even, like, it happened. You see, Travis Konechny, I don't know. I think he could have got more if he hits free agency. Now players we know they hate moving. We know they hate insecurity. Like, they just like to have their contract and be where they are. Yeah. I get it. But if he hits the open market, I think he gets more, or at least the same. And maybe he goes to a team that's going to be in the playoffs less than 3 years from now. Like, we keep seeing dudes choose to stay. Not to mention, if you stay here, you are automatically on the short list for front office jobs. Like, you have a job for life somewhere if you're a Philadelphia Flyer for, like, damn, Keith Jones wasn't even here that long. Like, he was here a couple of seasons. He is now, and then he became a broadcaster, and then he became the president of the freaking team. It seems like they have a pretty good organizational infrastructure once you're inside. These outside problems, they clearly are, like, something is amiss.
Yes.
Because you're right.
And I think that's my point.
You're right. This doesn't seem to happen to other teams,
not nearly as much.
Especially twice in a couple of months.
Yes.
That is inexplicably ridiculous. But I just don't see the connection between the two. other than it happened.
Right.
Like,
You're being very charitable. I'm actually surprised. I wasn't expecting you to be this charitable to the Flyers.
The Cutter thing, I do kind of blame on them. I think they did a great job of handling it. And
they did a great PR work.
Yeah, they did great PR work handling it in the immediate aftermath. And hopefully Jamie Drysdale is that dude and we can all forget about it and it's fine. But they probably could have done more to handle that situation. I just don't see, like, yeah, Matvei Michkov is the favorite to win the Calder. Kolosov was 43rd in save percentage in the KHL last year. He's some guy. They believe in him. Yeah. But he's just some guy. His 907 was 43rd. That's without a games played filter, but 43rd in the KHL. This year, although it's only 2 games, for comparison's sake, Zavragin's at a 930 for Sochi.
He's doing quite good for a really bad team.
Yeah, for a really bad team. And it's like, oh, well, maybe he's just facing a lot of shots. The other guy, who was a 5th-round pick for Columbus in 2022, he's played 3 games for Sochi. He's at 909. Like, he might not even be the best goalie in Russia for this team. Like, I guess they could and should just roll out the red carpet because they can afford it, and why not? If it's going to make everyone happier, sure. It's just like, I don't know, show up to work, bro. You signed a contract. Show up to work.
It's fair. Here's another thing, too, that I do want to point out about this, and this is something that I talked about on the show, I think it was last week, and I still hold to this. If you're going to make the argument that this is Kolosov's fault, he has a sense of entitlement, he doesn't deserve to be in the NHL right away, and he's not willing to play in the AHL, and that's on him for being soft and whatever. Fair. I think it's a fair opinion to hold. And if you want to make the argument that Cutter Gauthier, he just isn't a good character guy, he has a big ego and he wanted to be coddled, he wanted to be told how great he was and that we desperately need you and all that stuff. Okay, maybe that's the case. He hasn't told his side of the story. That's a possible explanation. Why aren't these red flags coming up in the pre-draft evaluation? Why do they keep picking these guys? If this isn't the Flyers' fault, why aren't you recognizing that these guys are problems before you spend draft picks on them?
And I think that might be the most fair critique is like, all right, maybe these are totally different situations but like, you do need to then do a better job of figuring that out.
And this
stop picking them.
And this is where I go back to resources. Like you're the Flyers. You got Comcast behind you. They're throwing gobs of money at everyone that ever laced up the skates for you. Maybe spend a little bit more on a private investigator to look into these guys. You know what I mean? Like you have the resources. Like,
where's your big dom?
Make a bigger dossier of these guys before you take them. You have no, you're not Toronto, but you're the next tier down. You got a lot of resources. Use them so that you're not wasting 3rd-round picks on guys who 3 years later decide they don't want to come over.
I realize they're not Toronto because it's like, that's like Maple Leafs Incorporated,
Fair.
So it's not the parent company, it's the company. But if Comcast wanted to, Comcast has more resources than like the United States of America. They could probably build an equal army if they were willing to pay to do. They could do this.
They built one tower in the center city, and then 3 years later, you're like, nah, we want a taller one.
We're gonna beat ourselves, damn it! Like they single-handedly ended the championship drought by putting Little William Penn up there. They can do anything. I do think that's a fair criticism. I just show up to work. Kolosov's gripes to me are like, I sign a contract with PHLY for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And they tell me your job is to come into the studio every day. 5 days a week, you have to come into the studio. And then on day 1, I go, I'm going to need to work from home every day.
Every day.
And they're like, but you signed that doesn't work for me, dog.
Just don't feel like doing it.
Just doesn't work for me. I think PHLY would be justified in going, you have to come to work. That's just me, though. They need to figure out whether it's pre-draft, research or whatever, or it's the way they treat the guys once they have to figure out a way to stop this from happening. Yes. Because maybe more than anything, it's like other players are going to go, well, clearly dudes don't want to go there, so maybe I don't either. And then that's the only thing they ever think about the Flyers and don't give them a second thought. And whether that's draft picks or free agents or guys waiving clauses to get here, they're going to need those things to happen in order to reach the Stanley Cup one day. But, like, I just don't have an explanation for Kolosov other than he doesn't want to play in the AHL. And what do you do with that for a guy who needs to play in the AHL? He's not that good in the KHL. Wait, you're going to throw him in the net here? Like, no. Sorry, that's not the way it works.
Yeah. By the same token, though, and this is something I did include in my column, does this, now that we know that one of Kolosov's big issues is he wants to play in the NHL, does it make you think less of the decision to bring Fedotov over? Given the fact, like Fedotov is older. Even if this goes really well, and Fedotov is an above-average NHL goalie, he's not going to be around for a decade.
No.
That is a present-day, win-now type of move. Maybe he could be the goalie for 3-4 years, but he'll be in his early 30s pretty soon. If by signing Fedotov, you lost Kolosov, was it worth it?
This is where it's like, I know I've told them they need to be more like Vegas. Like, stop saying, well, man, he gave us everything, so we gotta just treat him right, even though it's like, oh, should you be allocating your resources this way? Like, no, Vegas has been through how many coaches, how many GMs, how many goalies? Like, they don't care. They just let Marchessault go. He won the Conn Smythe. Like, they do need to be a little more cutthroat. But that kid's situation is just like, how do you, so you can come, and now we're going to tell you no after all that? Like, yeah, maybe it was the wrong move. I just can't be like, oh, they screwed up bringing this kid over who they thought they had 2 years earlier, and then, like, on his way, got arrested and sent to the military in active war. It's not like he was in the National Guard on every other weekend or something. Like, he's on an aircraft carrier for a country that's at war, and then works his way back to be able to play in the KHL again, and now he can come fine. Maybe that did cost them, but also Kolosov knew that when he signed.
I'm not sure. I truly do.
Because it all happened at once.
It happened around the same time. I don't know how
much he knew.
I don't know how open the Flyers even could have been with Kolosov about the nature of the Fedotov, because they kept that Fedotov situation very, very quiet because they didn't want to screw it up, because obviously there's geopolitical things going on there. He got literally pulled out of an ice rink a year earlier and thrown onto an aircraft carrier. So they didn't want to get him in any more trouble by getting it leaked. But I don't know if they told Kolosov, by the way, like, you're not the only guy from the KHL we're bringing over in the next, couple weeks. I don't know.
And I guess it's when he then comes over and it's like, hey, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And one guy's going to the NHL and one guy isn't. Maybe that could have played a part in it. Until we hear from Kolosov, I don't want to be like, well, that screwed it up. But yeah, maybe it wasn't the right decision. Maybe that is the turning point. And then if that did cost you a guy who and it's not like everyone's high on Kolosov. It's the organization that believes he's super freaking good and could be a franchise goalie one day. Then maybe you should have handled it different. I am willing to concede that part.
Yeah, and I'm not even saying necessarily that, he didn't know that Fedotov was coming over and then he came over and he felt like he was lied to. I don't know. I'm not accusing the Flyers of that. What I'm saying is that you have a guy in Kolosov who apparently right now is saying, I want to play, I would come over if I had an NHL spot. But they don't have an NHL spot to give him because they attached themselves for 2 years to a 28-year-old. You know what I mean?
And that's
maybe if the spot was open, they wouldn't have given it to him anyway because they just think he'll be better off in the AHL, and their opinion wouldn't have changed. But at least they would have had the option to think about it. Now it's like, where is he going to play? Like, I guess you could trade Erson, but they like him a lot.
They don't seem willing to do that.
Yeah.
He's like, they're coming in like, oh yeah, he's the starter.
Yeah.
It's very interesting situation. We're going to have more on this in just a second. But first, Maybe this is what the Flyers need. We're talking about hiring. We're talking about finding the right matches for your organization.
Love it.
Perhaps Danny Briere needs to utilize Indeed because we're all driven for the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. It's to match. And it's to match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global visitors each month, according to Indeed data. And with Indeed, you can ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster with a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. So join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And while we're here, oh man, it's the perfect time to be shopping at FOCO, baby.
Yes.
Because FOCO has the absolute best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. Whether it's hoodies, jackets, maybe you still want to get some of that beach wear. Get ready for next year. Even overalls, there's something for fans for almost every occasion. And if there's something we're not short on right now, it's occasions. Football's here. Hockey's coming. Baseball playoffs coming. Basketball right around the corner. We're about to be in that sweet spot where all the sports are going on. So you want to gear up with FOCO. And if you're looking for some accessories, toys, collectibles, or novelty items for your Man Cave She Shedder podcast set, you've got to use FOCO for all those needs as well. FOCO always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in the description of the show. And for all non-presale items, use the promo code PHLY10 for 10% off. That's PHLY10 for 10% off at FOCO today. Use FOCO. Do it. All right. Is there any more on Kolosov? How much do
I think we pretty much ran the gamut
show,
on Kolosov. It's the big story. I'm writing a column on it. It'll be out in the next couple hours, hopefully. But it was the big story today that we now got full-fledged confirmation that Kolosov is not coming. And Briere, for the first time on the record, revealed why. At least his interpretation as to why.
The one thing I saw on this that I hadn't seen before, I saw this on the Hockey News, but it's from Elliot Friedman. The Flyers have informed interested teams that the price to acquire Kolosov is a second-round pick. However, Friedman also noted that the teams will not acquire Kolosov unless they are completely sure he would join them, obviously. Second-round pick for a guy you drafted in the third and
seems ambitious.
Is refusing to come over unless he can play in the NHL. At least that's what you're saying publicly. He ain't getting traded.
That tells me the Flyers do not want to trade
We aren't
Kolosov.
trading you. No, we are holding you hostage. Is that the right move?
Well, I guess you have to aim high in these sorts of things. Yeah. If a team comes and offers a fourth, do they think about it? Maybe. Maybe they think about it. But I think the Flyers are of the opinion that they want this guy in their organization and they want him to show up. I mean, Briere said that on multiple occasions today, that the door isn't closed.
Yeah,
he could show that. He was straight up asked by Jackie Spiegel, the Inquirer, "Are you guys going to toll the contract?" And Briere said, "We haven't even gone down that road yet." Because if he were to show up in December, then he's under contract. Then he plays. And I think they're still hoping that at some point over the next few days, weeks, months, whatever, he changes his mind and shows up, and then they'll put him in Allentown and they'll see how he does. To this point, and he very well may do this at some point in the future, to this point, he has not yet signed a contract with Minsk or with any KHL team. He is just practicing with Minsk and waiting around, hoping the Flyers are going to change their mind about loaning him, I guess. And the Flyers made it clear, Briere made it clear today, they're not going to change their mind. So I don't know where this goes, but the Flyers are leaving the door open for him showing up at some point down the road.
And as much as I am siding with the Flyers on this, man, show up to work thing, should they just give in and loan him? I know, you want him to play. Like, if you ultimately want him here, that means you want him to continue developing. No one is served by him just not being allowed to play anywhere.
True.
Like, should you
It is the KHL, though. Like, they'll sign.
Yes.
Somebody will. They don't care about these
maybe,
rules.
but they haven't yet.
True.
Like, that's the thing is, like, the season's underway. We're 5-6 games into the KHL season. There's a 22-year-old goalie just sitting out there who's decent, at least, like, has some promise. He's not under contract yet. You're out of camp. Like, I don't know. I just, this might be where I'm like, even though I'm kind of on the Flyers side, it's like, what do you lose other than like face? I
think their view,
now you're just dug in and you can't.
I think their view is that if they cave on this, is he ever even going to come over, or is he just going to say, "Well, I want to stay in the KHL"? And then you loaned him 3 straight years in an ELC that you paid him signing bonuses for, and he just never came over. I don't think there's a lot of trust that if they were to loan him again, that he wouldn't do the same thing next summer. Be like, well, if there's not an NHL spot for me, then I'm not coming.
All right.
I think that's their view.
I guess that's the... I just don't want to, like... Do you think this relationship's repair? Like, now that this is happening and there's public statements being made and they're saying the door's open, but like... Is it even possible to repair this relationship, do you think? I guess we don't know because we haven't heard anything directly from Kolosov. It's just like, yeah, he ain't coming.
I would be surprised if Alexei Kolosov ever plays a game for the Philadelphia Flyers.
That's the way
I'm not
going,
saying
right?
It's impossible. Just saying I would be surprised.
All right. The other bit of news we got today, we weren't sure if they actually executed the contract termination. We wondered if they were just kind of
Ryan Johansen.
Ryan Johansen.
He's gone.
Yeah, they have executed the contract termination.
Briere confirmed that today in the presser. I specifically asked.
Yeah, we were wondering like, oh, maybe they're just negotiating behind the scenes, and this kind of ends in like a settlement that's basically the buyout that they couldn't get because he claimed to be hurt. Right. But no, the contract of Ryan Johansen has been terminated. He's got until like mid-October to file the grievance.
The NHL,
60 days.
The NHLPA, because they're the ones who would file a grievance on his behalf.
Yeah, the PA. Yeah.
They have 60 days from the action point, which I'm presuming is the day it was terminated. I confirmed also with Briere that it was terminated the day after he was placed on waivers. So yeah, that would be around mid-October. Also, I mean, and we've seen this in past disputes between the NHL and the NHLPA in these types of situations with contracts being terminated and whatnot. I'm thinking back to the Corey Perry situation. Yeah, Corey Perry's contract got terminated for cause. For, I guess, I don't know if it was referred to as a material breach, but functionally it was. It was like a character clause, essentially.
Some sort of issue, yeah.
The NHLPA threatened to file a grievance. They never actually did, though. And then the NHL and the NHLPA announced a settlement without a grievance having to be filed. So presumably that could be going on right now, where maybe the two sides are talking, and if they can't come up with a settlement by mid-October, then they file the grievance and start that process.
This is... It's always something. It's just another thing that I just wish we weren't... I mean, listen, filled an hour with this stuff today, basically. It's good for us. Yeah. But like for a team that, like we're saying, there might be the biggest issue right now might just be perception with the team. And it's not even perception in town. Like, oh, they're irrelevant. Oh, it's just the same old Flyers. Like, it's league-wide perception is like, this might not be the best place to work. Despite, it seems as if the great majority of players have a good time here. Yeah. They like it. But there's just these like high profile situations. Like Kolosov, he might just not end up ever being anything. It's not as if he's the highest. This isn't Askarov where it's like, oh, he's ticketed for greatness. Like, who knows? But like, he might just not be any good. Who knows? But it's still a high profile enough situation that this has been going on. It's like you go to sportsnet.ca and guess what? There's a Kolosov article. And now with Ryan Johansen, is he any good anymore? Doesn't seem like it, but everyone knows who Ryan Johansen is. Yeah. It's not like this is just some dude.
Yeah.
How do these things just keep happening with the Flyers?
Because it's the Flyers. They're
like
the chaos organization. Just chaos since 1967. Look, I personally don't think that there is a perception around the league that the Flyers, like, it's not a good time to play in Philly. It's not a good place. I don't think there's that perception. I do think there are some players that probably never want to play for John Tortorella. I think that's real. I don't think players look at the Johansen situation and say, yeah, I don't want to play in Philly. That place is a mess. I don't think so. But I do agree that it doesn't make the organization look good when they're constantly in the news for these types of things.
I just hope this thing gets resolved quickly. Like, I know that's not going to happen because there's the grievance period and then the potential settlement. Do you think this just ends with like that after the fact settlement and it's like, yeah, he's going to count against the cap like a buyout?
I have always assumed that this is going to end with a settlement of some sort. I always have. And Elliot Friedman has hinted as much when he's basically said that the last thing that the NHLPA wants is a precedent being set that teams can very easily terminate contracts and citing a material breach. That's why I never thought that it would ever get to the point where an arbitrator makes the decision. Because if it's a settlement, then both sides can settle and they can make it clear in the settlement that this is not precedent setting. This is a unique individual situation. If it goes to an arbitrator and an arbitrator sides with the NHL and the Flyers, then suddenly it makes it substantially easier for other teams to terminate the contracts of players if they just don't want to pay them anymore. And I don't think the NHL wants to set that precedent. So the NHLPA wants to set that precedent. So the NHLPA is motivated to settle this. And I think the Flyers would be okay with settling it as well if it means it gets them far enough down where they're under the cap ceiling without having to use long-term injury reserve, which was the whole point of this in the first place.
Yes. Before we wrap up today's show, I just want to thank all of our subscribers, all of our diehards. We couldn't do what we do here at PHLY without you. And if you're not a diehard, sign up right now, allphly.com, so you can get stuff like all this dude's premium content. We just spent a whole lot of time talking about Alexei Kolosov. I bet you there's some stuff in that article I didn't even think to touch on because he's that freaking good. No super chats today. You mentioned cap compliance. So they're technically cap compliant right now because they terminated the contract.
Yeah. It's not if they terminate the deal, which Briere said they did, they are under the cap. They have a very clear path to being under the cap for day one of the regular season, even without using long-term injury reserve. However, and I did say this when it happened a couple months ago or last month, I don't remember the exact, about a month and a half ago, I think is when it went down. Because of the possibility of a settlement, or in theory, the possibility of a grievance and them losing it, I think they're going to tread lightly in terms of just assuming that they have $4 million worth of cap space freed up. Because they know it's possible that in the event of a settlement, they might end up having $2 million worth of a cap hit on their books instead of $4 million. So they're going to tread lightly in terms of, they're not going to run out, I think, and sign somebody who's still out on the market for, $3 million or whatever. I mean, obviously offer sheets are pretty much out of the question at this point. But that's more or less what I'm saying is that, yes, they technically have the space, but it's still in their heads that we shouldn't use it all right now because it might come back to haunt us if we do.
But if they need to call someone up, they can. Stuff like that. They're not right up against it or the 830,000 over that they were prior to the termination. All right, we did get 2 late super chats. Okay. Let's get to those from Xanothium. So has Ryan Johansen actually had that surgery that his agent said was scheduled?
I don't know.
That's a great question. No idea. They said it was soon.
Said it was scheduled.
It seemed as if it was going to be and that's going to keep him from reporting to camp. And that was the whole idea. Sure, it was to maybe have a summer and avoid his wedding, but that's kind of where they're listen, that's why the Flyers have an issue.
Well, if the contract's terminated, he doesn't have to report to camp because he's not under contract anymore.
That's true. All right. And from Gary B, Alexei Kolosov seems like an entitled D-bag.
Well, Gary, you have every right to believe that if you want.
might not disagree. Based on the information I have right now, I kind of feel you, Gary.
I am not ready to say
no, you're a journalist. You're not going to say that about a guy. And that's a fine opinion to have. We don't know all the information as well. Based on the information presently, I think there might be an entitlement issue with Alexei Kolosov, but we don't know everything.
And I think look at it from his perspective too. We're looking at it obviously from the perspective of the Flyers. Fans are looking at it from the perspective of the Flyers and what is good for the Flyers. I understand why Alexei Kolosov, who obviously is not, he's Belarusian, he's Eastern European, that's his home. He's looking at it as, I went over to Allentown and I hated it. I was miserable. I hated it. I don't want to do that again. I'm honestly probably lukewarm on the idea of living in North America because I just won't feel comfortable, whatever. If I'm playing in the NHL, I'll deal with it because it's the freaking NHL. But if it's not the NHL, I'm not going to make myself be miserable just to play in the minors. And that might be the way he's looking at it. And you know what? Like, I don't think that necessarily makes him a jerk. Flyers fans are welcome to disagree, but I get where he's coming from in that he's like, look, like, I am not going to be happy in North America. I will deal with not being happy if I'm in the NHL. But if I'm not, I'd rather just stay in Europe. The argument on the other side is, well, dude, you signed a contract, so you have to, be mature and live up to the consequences of your decisions. But I'm looking at this from a human perspective, and I'm saying that I understand why he could be like, I don't like it in North America, but I'll do it if I'm playing in the freaking NHL.
Yeah, I get it. It's just like sometimes we do have to deal with the consequences of our decisions, even if we don't like them. That's, that's all.
It's fair.
All right, and that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, you got to hit that subscribe button. Follow us right here on YouTube. Hit that reminder bell so you never miss a live show. 4 p.m. is our new non-game day start time, perhaps permanently. So make sure you're here for that. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers and follow the podcast as well wherever you get those. Just search PHLY Flyers. That's it. My name's Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Until tomorrow, you stay loose and sexy, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.